Oh, me, oh, my.
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hello, 313. Hello, Michigan. And thank you for listening to Travel Basketball with Gus Weaver on Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host. This is a show that's strictly dedicated to travel basketball in and around the great state of Michigan. We do venture off and talk about things that's going on elsewhere, but basically centered around events, around teams, around players here in Michigan. And when we tell you travel basketball, there is a great abundance of talent in the Detroit area. If you listen to some of these people from elsewhere, they say basketball in Detroit is dead. There's even, local people here that's saying youth basketball in Detroit is dead. Well, this show is, dedicated to proving to you guys and showing you guys that it's not dead. It's alive, it's kicking, it has a bright future. And one of the things we do on this show is we tend to give exposure, interviews, shout outs to some of the kids and some of the programs that really deserve to be on the map, but they're not in the limelight just yet. It's something that we really enjoy doing. And, the people that we provide the platform to talk about their program, to talk about their team, I do believe they really enjoy it too. And that's based upon the reactions, the feedback that we get, after we have a special guest. They like to promote it on social media, and more shares. Like I've told you, we're slowly but surely growing this audience, and it's not the easiest audience to build because this is something that's brand new, something that hasn't been done yet. So that's more so what we're into, tackling the big things, and so far it has been a success. I think everyone that has ever tuned in, all of my guests, it's been a success, and we're slowly but surely growing this audience. We pretty much like to stick to a particular format when we do this show, and what we usually do is look back at a big time tournament from last weekend. We look ahead to a tournament that's coming up this weekend. We often bring you a guest, whether it be a coach, a director, whatever the case may be in terms of basketball. We try to bring those guys to you so you can get a sense of what's going on behind the scenes, how big travel basketball actually is to the people that's involved. And it's a very small circle, but the people that are in that circle, it is a major thing to them. It takes up a lot of their time. A lot of sacrifices are made by the parents and the coaches, and we like to bring that part to light as well. We've talked about everything from, national tournaments to little small tournaments. We've talked about national programs to small time, first time, brand new programs. So there's nobody to get slighted on this. And my affiliation is to one team, the 313 Hot Boys, which I'm the director for. But if you listen to this show, you will rapidly find out that there is no bias towards the Hot Boys. We give them shout outs just like we give other teams shout outs. And we're looking for no special attention for that. First things first, here's what we got lined up for you today. I think we got a great show in store. It's a fun time to be in Detroit. If you're a Big Three fan, if you're an Ice Cube fan, if you're a retired NBA guys still trying to play fan, then it's a great time to be in Detroit because Ice Cube's Big Three is showcasing tonight at Little Caesars Arena. Something that I really, really wanted to go to, but basketball has taken me elsewhere this weekend. So, big shout out to Detroit. Big shout out to Little Caesars Arena. Huge shout out to Ice Cube. If you don't enjoy Ice Cube, man, considering what he came from to what he is today, I don't know what you're looking at. Big shout out to Ice Cube. He's a true role model for a lot of these young men growing up. What we'll do today, we'll take a look back at a tournament that we previewed last week, the Reach July Tune-Up. So strictly a high school division tournament, but big time teams were in it. We'll take a look back at those results. We'll talk to Ernest Freeman, the director from the Motor City Wolverines. He does a lot for the youth in the inner cities of Detroit. When I say a lot, that's an understatement. He's really in it for the kids. So I'm really looking forward to what Ernest Freeman from the Motor City Wolverines will have to say as we talk to him a little bit later. And then we'll look ahead to a Gus Macker tournament held in the Upper Peninsula, Sault Ste. Marie, going down this weekend. After that, we'll get into the shout-out portion of the program, which is always one of my favorites. Once again, my name is Gus Weaver. I'm your host. Please follow me on Twitter, 313Life Brand. Definitely follow Detroit Sports Podcast Network. And, when we bring special guests in, we also give them an opportunity to give you guys, where you can follow them at. What's their Twitter handle? Can you find out what they're doing on Facebook and such? So let's jump right into the July tune-up hosted by Reach. This took place in Dearborn last week. As I previously stated, this is a strictly a high school age and grade tournament. So, one team that we'll just take a quick look at the Final Four, which featured Reach Legends, UTS Elite, AABA, and Muskegon Heat. We've talked a lot about most of these programs, especially the Muskegon Heat. We've talked a lot about AABA. We've talked a lot about Reach. We talked a lot about Hudson Elite and his team, this 8th grade group, and they got bounced in the first round of bracket play. Not what I was expecting from them guys. But to speak on the first game in Final Four action, you got Reach Legends going up against UTS Elite. And Reach Legends got by those guys by 6 points, 35-29. In the other portion of the Final Four, you got AABA jumping all over Muskegon Heat. And Muskegon Heat kind of made a run of it at the end and made it a tight game. AABA escapes 32-30, very narrow margin, which led to a Reach Legends and AABA championship game. And, from a fan's perspective, there's not much more you can ask for to see Reach and AABA go at it. And Ann Arbor Basketball Academy came out on top. Final score 39-28. Remarkable job in terms of what the director at AABA is doing. Jordan Ebbs is his name. It's a guy that really knows basketball, and he's transformed AABA into a team to be reckoned with. And, I can speak from experience. The guy really knows what he's doing, and AABA is no pushover. At this point, they are no pushover. So congratulations to him and his 8th grade boys on winning that July tune-up in that age group. We talked last week about a couple of different teams in terms of the 9th grade group here. So Final Four contention, DV45. We highlighted that team. That's the Denzel Valentine group at the 9th grade level. Final Four, DV45, Oakland Elite, Michigan Dynamite, Reach Legends. Now, this was a little surprising to me. However, we highlighted Oakland Elite in last week's episode as well. So let's take a look at these scores. DV45 get bounced in the first part of this Final Four by Oakland Elite, and not by a narrow margin at all. Oakland Elite handled them 60-46. In the other part, Michigan Dynamite took out Reach Legends, which I didn't expect. I expected Reach, I expected DV45, and I gave Oakland Elite an outside shot. This championship game ended up being Oakland Elite against Michigan Dynamite, and Oakland Elite opened the can on the Michigan Dynamite team. Final score 62-40. This Oakland Elite 9th grade team, if they did not have my respect before, they have it now. Not the easiest bracket to get through, and those guys came through big. So major shout out to Oakland Elite. Follow those guys on Twitter. Big time program. We always talk about the glue programs in the state of Michigan in terms of travel basketball. And I do believe that my respect has been earned for Oakland Elite. And I'll consider those guys one of the glue organizations in the state of Michigan, a powerhouse program that can field multiple teams, multiple age groups. Big shout out to those guys for winning the 9th grade championship at the Reach July tune-up. That'll get us right into 10th grade. A quick look at the Final Four. Motor City Chargers, Reach Legends, Greenwood Elite, AABA. AABA kind of had their way running through everybody until they met up with Greenwood Elite in the Final Four. And, I talked with Jordan about this Greenwood Elite team, Jordan being the director of Ann Arbor Basketball Academy. And he says this Greenwood Elite team, 10th grade, is probably the toughest team they've ever played. So, Final Four matchup, Greenwood Elite against Ann Arbor Basketball Academy, a big-time win for Greenwood Elite, 54-31, 23-point victory. Did not see that coming. Greenwood Elite is for real. The other part of this Final Four, Motor City Chargers and Reach Legends. Reach handled them easily, but a low-scoring kind of defensive affair, 38-30, which brought us Reach Legends and Greenwood Elite in the championship. And as I said, Greenwood Elite is serious. Team full of ballers. The backcourt pressure defensively is a problem. It creates a problem. It creates a offensive flow issue for the other team. And that's kind of how they won this tournament, was ball pressure, intense defense, and not beating themselves. This final score, 42 Greenwood, 39 Reach. Congratulations to Greenwood on winning the 10th grade division of this July tune-up. And, I can't say enough about the Greenwood Elite team, judging from what I've heard. So, once again, congratulations to those guys. The next age group is the last group. These are 11th graders going into their senior year. And here's how the Final Four looked. Michigan Mustangs, Detroit Reach, Detroit Hurricanes, and the Michigan Blazers. Now, not a lot of well-known teams in this 11th grade division, but nonetheless, they're here competing. And if you think it's, the quality of basketball isn't the same because the program name isn't as big, you're sorely mistaken, because, those are some of the programs that we tend to want to see. We want to see these guys in person. So, first round, Final Four, Michigan Mustangs take out Reach, 65-49. Easy run for the Mustangs in that game. The other half of the Final Four, Detroit Hurricanes, 1-point victory over the Michigan Blazers. Low scoring affair, 26-25, which brought us to Michigan Mustangs and Detroit Hurricanes in the championship game at the 11th grade division, and Detroit Hurricanes. Now, another 1-point win, 37. Well, this one was a 2-point win, 37-35 over the Michigan Mustangs. So two very tight games for Detroit Hurricanes in the Final Four to win this one. Anytime you're involved in two very tight games, as that, it's an emotional roller coaster for the fans, for the coaches, for the parents. And whoever comes out of that is usually the more mentally strong team. So good job, Detroit Hurricanes, in their 11th grade division championship at the Reach July tune-up. That was your look back on last week's tournament that we previewed. And up next, we're going to talk to a very prominent individual in terms of youth basketball in the city of Detroit from the Motor City Wolverines, Ernest Freeman. As advertised, we have Coach Freeman, founder of the Motor City Wolverines and the Kings of Detroit Basketball League, on the line right now. Coach Ernest Freeman, thank you for joining the program.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, man. Something that we always do, something that we aim to do on this program is give people shout outs that we feel deserve it, that's actually putting in the work. Not necessarily the biggest names on social media, because those kids and those programs, they get love anyway. So, things that you do for the youth and things that you have been doing for the youth around the city of Detroit, can you give our listeners just a little insight? How long you been doing this? What made you get started? What you into right now?
Well, I've been coaching since 1998 with different little rec centers around the city. But then 2013, me and my wife, we started the Motor City Wolverines AAU program. And what we do with that program, we in-house teams from Redford, Detroit, Southfield, East and West of Detroit. And we try our best to give these kids a different site. What we like to do is we use basketball to care. We really care about the education, and we really care about the kids. Once they graduate from the program, we try to do different things for the boys. I
like that, man. We've had a few guests on. I don't know if you listen, but we had a guy named Zeke Harris on. Do you know Zeke Harris out of the Cleveland area?
No, sir.
Okay, he does a lot of things similar to you, man, in terms of just, like you said, giving kids an alternative way, living their life, something positive to do, being around positive people, being around positive role models. And that's something that can be appreciated. And these kids, it's something that the kids will never forget. What do you got going on, like, right now? I know you got a league coming up, right?
Well, we're getting ready to start our third season with the Kings of Detroit basketball, and we have it's an 8-week program plus playoffs. Championship game will be at Little Caesars Arena. We have 6 different age groups. We have a 9U, a 13U, 12U, 11U, 15U, and a 17U.
So, like, right now, I would say to because we slowly growing this audience, man. Like, we're getting directors on board from all over. We're getting coaches on board. To any of you coaches, directors, even if you're a parent listening and you want your kid to have a chance to play at Little Caesars Arena, I think that's huge. Look, later on we'll give out Coach Freeman's social media so you guys can follow him, get in touch with him, get in on that league. Whether you're a team in Detroit or a suburban team, I highly recommend it. Especially, once in a lifetime opportunity to play at the brand new LCA. Let me ask you this, man, because, I recently founded my own team. And when you did your thing in 2014, you and your wife starting the Wolverines, how difficult was it, like, initially to get players? Or did you have players waiting and it was just on you to start a team?
Well, to be honest with you, I already had some players in mind. But I was also working at Washington Park Academy on Telegraph. I was coaching there, and I already had kids in line. But I also was coaching through the town rank, and I've been coaching football. And while I've been coaching football, I already had access to the kids. And my wife said, kind of cut one of them out, and football had to go. And we stuck with basketball, and it's really, truly blessed the city with my program. And I really appreciate her for me and my eyes and helping me get this program off the ground.
I totally understand that, because that's something that's got to be, like, you got to kind of be, on the same page with that better half to be able to, put your all into it, put the effort into it that you want to. And that's big. And that's one of the behind the scenes things that people tend to not even think about. Like, but, you got to be lockstep on that too. How many squads right now, like, how many teams does the Motor City Wolverines bring to the table?
Right now, we're housing a 7U. We go from 7 to 17. We have a 7U. Shout out to Coach Williams. He actually just won the championship out at Total Sports out in Taylor, Michigan.
Okay.
One of my guys just won the championship out there. So we have a 7U all the way to 17.
Nice. So are you guys, you ever get into the hosting of tournaments, man? Can you say anything about hosting tournaments?
Well, to be honest with you, me and Doc from Hype, we had a showcase this past spring. It was Kings of Detroit, where we gave out book bags, uniforms to the winners. It was at Hype Recreation Center out in Dearborn. It was a pretty nice event. When Gil Martinez from San Antonio, Texas, he flew down. He's the one that's making the uniforms, and we partnered with him. We had some good games.
Let me ask you about if you have any premier players. I know a lot of times coaches don't like to single out guys, but most programs, especially if you got teams from 7U to 17U, you got to have a few, at least a handful of premier players in that organization that's worthy of a shout out. Give them guys some love.
Well, truthfully, man, I'll be honest with you. My son is one of them. He's a premier player. He's a two-way guard. His number speaks for itself. I have another kid. He's class of 2023. His name is Kendall Mays. He's been with me since he was in 4th grade. We call him AKA Shaq. Last year, he was 6th grade Midwest Player of the Year through Jason Drake and the exposure event he had going on in Indiana. I got another kid, Malik O'Neal. He's very special. He's class of 2022. And he's ready to go.
Nice. That's nice, man. Well, one more question, man. Like I was saying in the early part of the program, it's a good time to be in Detroit with the Big Three coming. What you got to say about the Big Three being at the LCA tonight?
First and foremost, I would like to give a big shout out to Ice Cube. Yesterday, he put on an event for the boys. Of course, the Youth 3 and with the basketball tournament. He came out, he gave a speech for about 15 minutes. He gave a speech yesterday, and he told the boys to be powerful. He said that if you can dream it, you can achieve it. He was just saying that if you put your mind to it and you stick with it, that is powerful. And I hope that stuck with some of the boys that attended the camp yesterday. And I really appreciate him for coming out. And tonight, it's going to be 4 games. I guess it's going to be around 2-3 hours. But it's 4 games, half court. Some of the former players are going to be there. And they're going to be signing autographs. It's going to be a great event. That's
good stuff, man. Like I said, you one of those guys that literally create memories for so many kids in and around the city of Detroit. I think that's huge, man. And I think I saw Detroit Gladiators. That was one of the teams that was down there partaking in the Little Three, I think.
Yes, sir. They actually won the championship, man. Them boys is nice, man. And they are in the league. Detroit Gladiators from Coach Brown.
Yep.
They are in the Kings of Detroit league, and it's going to be a great season for them guys.
Yeah, man. We just we have a brand new 2025 Hot Boys team on the scene, and it was maybe about 3 weeks ago or a month ago. They ran across a Detroit Gladiators 5th grade team in the championship of a tournament, and tough battle, man. Went to overtime, and Gladiators came out on top. But those guys got some real ballers, some good coaching, they're well coached kids, and they're physical, and that's that Detroit brand of basketball. Being physical, being in your face, and taking it to the opponent, and them Detroit Gladiators did just that. So that's a shout out to those guys again.
And if you don't mind, I'll let it give another shout out, man. I'll let it give a shout out to Sky's the Limit.
Yes.
The team out of Pontiac, Michigan. They're down in National. They're in the championship. MWA 4th grade team. They won the championship yesterday. You have Reese String team. They're in the championship. No, I think they won it. No, they're in the championship. I think they won. I don't know offhand, but I know they're playing in the championship.
Yeah.
Today.
I think that's today.
Okay, yeah, they played today. They won in double overtime yesterday to go to the championship. So,
right.
Michigan and the Mitten, man, we're doing a great job. My boys, we went down to Mother Beach back in June and came in 2nd place in the gold division by 8th grade team. So I think Michigan is on the map for that.
Yeah, man. I think it's funny because I just spoke on that in the preview. There's a lot of guys talk and say that, Detroit basketball is dead, but I refuse to believe that because I'm around it so much and I see the quality in the athlete. I see the quality in the coaching. You know what I mean? I see the mentors. I see the role models, and I think all of that matters. And Detroit basketball, especially from a youth aspect, is definitely not dead. You got some heavy hitters out here on the Detroit scene.
I totally agree. And I like what you're doing with your program, bro. Y'all got a real nice program up and coming. Cowboys 313. I follow y'all a lot. I like what y'all doing, man.
I appreciate the love, Ernest. It's always good talking to you, man. Thanks again for being on the program. Before I let you go, let the listeners know where they can find you and keep up with what you got going on in terms of social media.
You can follow me on Facebook at Motor City Wolverines, or you can follow me under Ernest Freeman. Or if you're looking to get your son on my basketball team, give me a call, 248-508-9066. If you're looking to put the team in the league, you can give me a call as well, 248-508-9066.
Thank you so much, my friend. I really appreciate it, and I hope you get a couple of hits, strictly from this podcast. Get some more teams in that league. Not that you lacking, because, man, you got some quality clubs in that league, too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It should be a knockdown, bang, bang event, man. So I'll talk to you soon. Thanks again for being part of the program, Ernest.
Okay, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Hey, guys, that's a solid interview by a major player in Detroit youth basketball. We get into the shout-out program right now, and we might as well shout out Coach Freeman right now, founder of the Motor City Wolverines, founder of Kings of Detroit Basketball League. Look, man, he's providing kids the opportunity to play on Little Caesars Arena basketball floor. He's a big deal in Detroit basketball. Next shout-out, look, we were just going to shout out Detroit Gladiators. They were already on our list. We spoke a lot about those guys. Those were one of the teams that were able to take advantage of the opportunity to play at the LCA last night. Thanks again to Ice Cube. Next shout out. Last weekend, we talked about last week the 313 Hot Boys sending a team of 4 to a Greenville Gus Macker last weekend. Well, the boys came out as champions. Not only did they come out as champions, our very own Luke Westerdale won the 3-point shootout at the Gus Macker in Greenville. Congratulations to those guys, earning another shout out on this program. We got a shout out the Barnstorm Basketball Association on their weekly podcast. Please go follow them guys. We've done business with them before. We like how they do business. They like how we do business. We're a frequent flyer, so to speak, with the Barnstorm Basketball Association tournaments. We've been to 2 of them. I'm sending the 5th graders to an upcoming one next weekend. But they just came out with their podcast, episode number 6, and they gave a pretty solid preview of our very own 313 Hot Boys. Go and check them guys out. Listen to the podcast, subscribe, follow them, get into some tournaments. Look, we just talked to Coach Freeman, and he shouted out a few teams that are from Michigan, but are away from Michigan right now, doing their thing on the national scene. And we're going to shout those guys out. Sky's the Limit from Pontiac. MWA, Reach Dream Team. All of these teams out competing in nationals. MWA 4th grade team just won the whole darn thing. Reach Dream Team is playing for the title today at the 5th grade division. Major shout out to those guys. Major shout out once again to Coach Freeman. Major shout out to Detroit Sports Podcast Network for allowing us this platform. And one other thing I'd like to touch on, and it's not part of the glamour of travel basketball, of AAU basketball. If you guys follow at all, any type of basketball on social media, you probably saw the 2 fights. I think one occurred in Florida, one occurred in Chicago, I believe, where you literally had teams of kids fighting against referees. Just by coincidence, I spoke with the director and the founder of Teammate Hoops. He was a guest on our show, and we talked about that. I don't know if you guys remember the interview with Blake Thompson from Teammate Basketball. We talked about that. We've touched on this subject, and like I said, it's not one of the pretty things that you want to talk about, but one of the ways that I can help to try to rid the sport of these just terrible activities by a small percentage of the people is by talking about it. So if you saw the videos, the violence in the sport, the verbal threats in the sport, the referees are doing the best they can. I wish and I encourage all parents and players to be on your best behavior, and this thing will be much more enjoyable than it is. It's not that big of a big deal. You know what I'm saying? It's not that big of a deal. It's a game at the end of the day. And I know we use this game as a platform to get, to various places, but at the end of the day, it's a game. So parents, players, let's enjoy it while it lasts, because it'll be gone before you know it. That was this week's episode of Travel Basketball with Gus Weaver on Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Thank you for listening.